Hi, I'm John Stevens,
This is Matt Russell.
and this is Pod Have Mercy.
This is Pod Have Mercy.
Russell,
Yes, John Stevens.
let's talk faith in America. Or we can just talk about whatever you want to talk about.
Let's do this, John.
Let's do it. So Easter just happened. Did you have a good Easter?
It was great. It was great. I really enjoyed being here. I thought the services were amazing.
They always are.
And your sermon just,
Yeah.
I don't think there was a dry eye in the house.
Oh, you mean outside?
I mean outside, but you know what I mean.
How was the weather?
The weather was just, God does what God does. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's always beautiful, no matter what happens.
For those of you who are joining us, we are recording this before Easter. So Matt Russell is a liar, and he smells like beef and cheese. I just wanted to see what you would say.
He's sitting on a
Great.
throne of lies. Welcome to my
No, so it's
personal world.
supposed to be really nice. So by the time this comes out, we will know for sure if all you said comes true.
I'm a prophet. Or a fool.
One of the things I thought would be fun to talk about, there's a lot of research. When we started this podcast, it was all about really wrestling with the church and the world changing around us. And of course, the pandemic is on steroids. And we've had to learn to do a lot of things different. And this year, Barna does a lot of research, religious research and spiritual research in the U.S. Last year, Easter was all digital online, 100%. I mean, anywhere, because I think we were still in the quarantine stage.
We were.
What's interesting is when they ask churches this year, what do you plan to do? I don't know exactly when they ask these questions, but 45% said they were going to live stream online. 13% said they were going to record an Easter message to send out. 10% an outdoor service, which we did. 5% find another unique way to convene. 5% postpone Easter. Does that surprise you?
Yeah. Postpone Easter.
Yeah.
Huh. To win. Like St. Patrick's Day, or what do
Does
you
it worth it?
what do you do?
Yeah,
then?
it'd be next year.
I know.
And Orthodox Easter's later, right?
Yeah.
But that's only like a week or so.
Yeah, but that lasts for like 18 days too. So, have you ever been to an Orthodox Easter service?
No.
It's a marathon.
Yeah, so I was and then 20% had no plans.
Huh.
So this was March 24th through 30th. I think it's interesting when you think about how people are thinking about coming back. All right, no, okay,
wait.
you know what? All right, let's start over. I messed
Yeah.
up. Oh, what happened?
Hey.
All right, cut that down.
Oh, that was last year.
That was last year.
Oh, okay.
All right, good.
Okay.
See, I misread. I thought I was at the
2020.
21. I was at the 20. All right, we're going to start
Okay,
over.
that was
Jeff.
a month. That was a couple weeks before Easter. And let's see what the other one when they're drawing the data on the next one too.
All right, so they're drawing the data on the next one in the March, about the same time.
That's
No.
20. That's 2020. Now go up. Keep going.
Yeah, but that's the new one.
No, is it?
Yep,
Yeah.
that's 21. All right, let's start this over. All right. Yeah, welcome to Pod Have Mercy. All right, so last year, we're a year into pandemic, and we're also a year from Easter, right? We just had Easter services, churches all did. In 2020, when you think about what were we doing, I mean, I thought everyone was online, but according to Barna, at least 50% were live streaming. 13% recorded Easter message and sent it out. That's sort of what we did, right? I think we were live streaming, but we didn't have anybody in the actual
That's right.
sanctuary. Outdoor services 10%, and then other ways or postponing last year Easter. It makes sense to me now, 5% thinking about postponing, because at the
Right.
time we weren't sure that this wasn't going to last like a month, right?
Right.
We had no idea. 2% met as usual. 20% didn't know what they were going to do.
No plan in place.
That feels like me.
That was a month out to Easter. We have no plan in place. We have no idea.
It makes sense, though. It makes so much sense. Last year, we were like, what are we going to do? We have no idea.
I mean, do you remember, like, it felt like every week last year, it was just an adaptation. We were just pivoting, not really sure, until some things started kind of unfolding. But I just remember, it
was surreal to come in and at first we recorded the whole services like there were people in it, right? We just recorded that. We'd sent it out. And then we realized we could put this together better if we did the band and then did this and then did the sermon. But it was odd, man, preaching in a room with no people.
It's weird.
It was super weird. I don't think I could be a TV preacher, Yeah,
you need some people in the room. People help.
Yeah.
Well, this year, the majority of pastors are excited to celebrate Easter with actual people in the room.
Yeah.
Even though there's a lot of precautions out that are in place. And so this year, when you look at it, go, okay, well, 80% said we're meeting together in our building with COVID precautions. That makes a lot of sense. We're doing that. Live stream online, 71%. Meet outdoors, 22%. We have had outdoor services as well. 17% recording a message and sending it out, and then 11 meeting together without precautions.
Well.
5% just provide resources. No one was canceling all their services. That's interesting.
Yeah.
The difference between 2020 and 2021 is remarkable. Although I will tell you, I know a lot of churches, even in Houston, that their first in-person gathering church service will be Easter.
Yes.
Since last March.
Yes. Many of our denominational brethren and sisters will be doing that. Yeah.
And I would imagine that'd be the case in a lot of other states where they've been maybe more cautious than Texas or Georgia or some others.
And I wonder, too, if folks are meeting in person, live streaming, and sending things out, if there's some churches that will do all three of those, right? Because of just some of the ways we've gotten savvy about how folks are, engaging. So,
what did you miss the most during when you got a little taste here of the title of what people responded to, but I'm going to show you what did you miss the most with church was not like meeting in person?
We had just arrived about a month, and we were totally loving like the worship and just being like in the community, and it was wonderful. So I think just people and being together in worship was really something.
Well, at Chapelwood, everyone said they missed the senior pastor the most, and the sermons that he. No, I'm kidding.
It was cookies and then John Stevens.
The cookies. Mercy Street's the cookies. What do you miss about attending in-person worship service? This is interesting. Number one, taking communion, Holy Communion, the Eucharist, 24%. That's something we wrestled with last year. You remember Bishop Harvey said, that was such a big thing we were wrestling, like, can you do communion online? And it's like, now that's not even an argument we have.
Yeah.
I mean, some people do, but no one really is anymore.
No.
And it makes me wonder how many people actually took communion in their homes. I don't know. Socializing with other churchgoers before and after the services was about equal, 23%. You talk about missing people. And this is what I told with Joseph recently when you were not here, is that a guy came out of church and he was just, had his hand on my chest. He's like, I want you to bring our church back. I want you to bring our church back. Yeah. And I was like, what do you mean? Like to meet? We're meeting. No, I want you to bring our church back. So you mean mass? Or are we about talking about? I didn't know. I really had I was at a loss. And he's like, and he just kind of was like, just the people were not here and around and visiting. And I'm like, dude, I can't make the people come back.
Yeah.
But it was just interesting that his trauma and need of what he was missing was not the sermon, not the music, it was his people.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
We're contacting everybody in the church, right now, kind of sending emails out and just checking on people. And the emails that I'm getting back from folks, I just sent an email out to the group of folks that I'm attending to, and it's amazing. The feedback is just, it's been a really rough year, and they're hungry to be around folks. You know, I received 3 of those today, and so I think that's, you know, I think people like the guy that talked to you after service on Sunday is the same. It's just people are hungry for that.
Yeah, I mean, listening to the live sermon, 20%, 21%,
That's
connecting with like-minded people, greeting others, to have open and safe conversations about God. There's a lot of things on there. The least was having childcare while attending a service. You know, I've found too, since people have come back, they bring their kids to church. Before, a lot of people didn't bring their kids into the church.
Yeah.
They'd be in the Sunday school, or we'd have an overlapping service. And it's really refreshing to see parents in Sunday school classes, like the one that you've been doing in the fellowship hall or in the church, and they're there with their kids with them.
Yeah.
That's pretty amazing.
It's pretty great. What I've loved about that is that I'm getting to know the kids too.
Yeah.
You know, and so like when I'm at Southwells or, you know, walking around, I know these, there's just kids that you think, oh, I would have not known you unless you were in that little Sunday school class.
It's interesting. If they also looked at it by generation. So, you know, communion, of course, baby boomers, double millennials and Gen X
Combined
on communion. Socializing with others, a little bit more even split. Listening to the sermon, look at the millennials, like, nah, we didn't really miss that. Millennials are like, the live sermon, nah,
not so much. Yeah, we'll listen to a TED Talk or whatever.
So what did the younger generations miss, the Gen X miss the most? The Gen X missed the most.
You see that passing of the peace?
Oh, yeah.
Passing of the peace happens usually right after confession. And so like in the liturgy, right? And so you'll have this confession and then pardoning. And then usually it's a passing of the peace right after that, because now we're back in relationship with each other.
And it's a physical, tangible way to experience, feel God's forgiveness through another. You know, so when you pass the peace, you say, the peace of Christ be with you and also with you. Yeah. And you're that tangible, and you bro hug them. Bro hug it.
I loved it. I think we ought to, that's something we ought to think about, you know, like having those rituals of people saying that to each other coming back might be really fun.
But what was interesting, so millennials,
Maybe not.
what they miss the most, the chance to connect with like-minded people, live music, were the 2 biggest for them. And then greeting others, and passing the peace. There's a sense of the younger generation having more a sense of connection, needing the connection. I think the older congregation certainly has that the same, the baby boomers. But, man, the difference, 20% versus 12% for the young with the live music versus the older.
I mean, corporate worship, the millennials are like heads and shoulders above the older generation in what they miss, which is interesting.
Anyway, I found it interesting when you start thinking about, well, what is it that we've missed, or what is it that people out there, you know, are missing? What is it that they have experienced or missed about what it is that the church offers? And as we've talked about, I think there's going to be a lot more people that are going to find the need to, I don't know, I would just say the need for people to be more connected, more than they thought.
Yeah.
I think they're going to really, like I said, there'll be a lot of people that won't come back. There'll be a lot of people that won't, I mean, they'll intersect much less than they did. But I think there's going to be some people come back that we didn't expect to come back. Yeah.
I also have been wondering about this too, John, if the first 2 months of folks coming back are going to be super important. You know, will there, as we kind of think about what needs are walking through the door and how the Spirit and how we as a community might engage that, if we're able to meet needs and really kind of be open to folks, if that will be something that people like, yeah, that's what I've been missing. You know, that's what I've been needing. And, yeah.
So another thing Barna looked at was the satisfaction of your social life, your well-being, your work-life balance, and how that worked through. So I think spirituality, it's interesting the way Barna does it is they'll interview people that are Christian and non-Christian in society.
Yeah.
And so what they found is that practicing Christians were more likely to report higher levels of satisfaction with their social life during pandemic. Isn't that interesting? And so they were more satisfied Christians. So here's all U.S. adults. I mean, it's 12 to 21%. That's not a small number. And the majority of all U.S. adults and practicing Christians shared that they had altered, skipped, or canceled major events and milestones during the pandemic. Did you just cancel major things?
Yeah. Like I was thinking like the pandemic started right when Gabriel had a birthday. And so we had this whole party planned and all that. And we had to say, we can't do it, bro. And he was just crushed.
Oh, yeah. And the graduations.
Oh, remember that? Graduations and
that was
proms.
Bad.
All those
and you
things.
know, I get it. I didn't have one graduating. I get parents were just, they lost their minds.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, that's your whole life. I mean, you think, it's like, here's my oldest or my youngest or whatever, and this is a really, really big, whether you'd been through it before or not with your kids. I mean, I remember going through with Maddie, my youngest, that senior year, you know, she's the Marquette team, and they have their spring show, and then they have all these competitions, and they do all these things, and there's graduation, and there's these parties, and there's like proms and formals and all that kind of stuff. And the thought of her being told that whole season, you can't do any of these things, they're all canceled. And I can't imagine. I can certainly understand why parents behaved badly in that season.
Yeah.
Although it wasn't their fault. I mean, well, it was their fault to behave badly. It's probably your fault. But, I mean, I get it. I mean, the stress and the anxiety and the trauma on that. I mean, how do you see something being taken away from your child?
Yeah. A year later, all that is like if somebody came along, my son's a senior, and they said, yeah, it's canceled, we'd be like, all right. You know, a year later, it's like, you know.
Do you think so, really?
Okay. I mean,
do you think so, really? Do you think that, like, we're at a place now where it's like, if you cancel graduation again this year, everybody'd be okay? I don't think they would.
Not okay, but I don't think people would flip their lids as much as they did last year. I think we said it's online and we have to adjust because all these things have happened. I don't know. I also wonder if it's because churches, it's kind of like ours, had Bible studies and group meetings, and so then it's like, you know, we adapted around Zoom, and there's some ways that Sunday school classes or groups became more intimate. Right. I'm in a men's group that's met every, you know, Monday morning and have not skipped a beat, went to Zoom online, and it's just like, you know, it's been great. Yeah. So
this thing goes back, because it touches on it again, that in the fall, they talked about adults' work-life satisfaction. And when you look at this, that practicing Christians had a significantly higher level of being more satisfied in their work and life, work-life balance. And, you know, this is all right. So I'm going to sort of try to read between the lines here, because I can certainly see that if a church has taught people through their life about Sabbath, about relationships, about things that matter. If you don't have that foundation, right? You don't understand Sabbath. You don't understand stop and rest. You don't understand Lenten season, right? Where you deny self-denial and all this. So these are things we teach. Yeah. Most churches teach. I think we should teach. And I think so, even if you haven't lived and engaged in that regularly, the idea of having to be without.
Very interesting. Yeah.
I'm wondering if there's something coded in the DNA of people who are spiritual.
Yeah. That's really interesting.
Does that make sense?
Yep. Totally.
Now, I'm guessing. I don't know. But I mean, why that seems to be a really interesting, and it's a big difference.
Huge.
Satisfied with work-life balance during the pandemic. More so than before.
I wonder, too, you know, when this first began, we talked about the bigger narrative that this fits in for us about kind of God's story in the world, right? And so we, as you've been, talking about even this last season in the sermon series, this movement from and to, right? And we found ourselves in the pandemic in this kind of in-between place, not knowing where it was going, but we also knew that this is part of our Christian story, that we're folks that are moved from season to season and God's with us. And I wonder if some of the ability to pivot is because, or at least to be open to some of those things, is because of that dynamic that you're talking about.
Well, and look at this. U.S. adult satisfaction with mental and emotional well-being. Practicing Christians are almost double in the more satisfied category than all U.S. adults. And a smaller percentage are less satisfied. Wow. So how has your satisfaction changed from pre-COVID to now, your mental and emotional well-being? Again, this number is amazing to me when you look at how your spirituality and your faith, if you are a person of faith or you're a person who is engaged in spirituality in your life, this is not surprising to you. But if you have someone in your life that's not spiritual or not religious, and you look at this, I mean, if I were just more of a data-driven person who wasn't all that spiritual, and I'd look at that and I'd go, wonder what's going on there. That almost double of adults in the United States, percentage-wise, are more satisfied with their mental and emotional well-being because they're practicing faith, practicing Christians specifically in this. And I can just tell you from talking to a lot of practicing Christians, it's been tough.
I was going to say,
I can only imagine.
Wow. They interviewed folks in Hawaii. What were they taking this?
I can imagine people with no sense of spiritual groundedness, or that would have been really tough. There was one more I wanted to share with you that I found interesting. All right, so Barna also found out that 1 in 5 churchgoers has never attended church online during COVID. Now think about that. That's 20%. 20% of people who say, I'm a churchgoer, I go to church. That could be once a month, or it could be once every 2 or 3. I mean, it could be whatever.
Or it could be every week.
Could be a couple of times. 20%. That ain't small change.
No, that's not.
It's a lot of people. Not attended church online during COVID.
I love their phrase, an obvious and abrupt decline.
You think? You think? Look at these numbers. So as of September 2020, about 1 in 5 of those who would normally be defined as churchgoers, all right, say they have never attended a service during the pandemic, either in person or digitally. Now, half do keep up. Wow. So that's really interesting to me. And I might have some sort of a thought about the benefits of your spirituality on your emotional mental health. I don't know what this means or speaks to overall in society.
Yeah. I keep thinking, like, we're a faith of the body and of the flesh, right? And so I wonder if there's something like that in a digital format, like there's just a limitation, because I keep thinking we'll be celebrating it this Sunday. There's just this idea within our own faith that there's no substitute for flesh. There's just no substitute for flesh. And so that you can digitalize things, but it's very different, say watching something on a digital screen and having a lived experience with someone. And I wonder if there's a barrier for that.
Yeah, the last one I was looking at is like, you think, like there's a guy, and I'm sure there's a lot of them, like, I'm not doing anything online. I got to be in person. In person, it's like I'm an in-person person. Like, okay, I get you. But what's interesting is they did this study on this particular poll that 68% of Christians are willing to engage in online prayer and are willing to continue to do that going forward, that they found value in this connectivity and digital activity through their church. And so now not everybody participated, but the ones who did, it was a high percentage of them that said, hey, you know what? I would continue to do this. This continues to give me an opportunity to plug in with people and to plug into prayer in a way that maybe I didn't before, which I think is pretty cool.
Absolutely. So digitally, when there's a connection, an intimate connection between people, there's a higher satisfaction than when it's just content that's not kind of calling a person forward in some ways of interaction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I think kind of what a lot of this stuff says to me is online stuff is not, I mean, it's here to stay. Technology is here to stay. I was talking with a guy today, our whole conference-wide group with this committee that we meet, right? And I was like, well, when do you think we start going from Zoom meetings to like meetings again, like where people come? And he's like, I don't think you'll ever be back there totally. Now you think about how big our conference, you got people up in Tyler and Nacogdoches and Galveston and Bryan College Station and Houston. So if you're in Houston and you have a meeting in Houston, that's not a big deal. Yeah. But are you going to drive 3 hours from Texarkana, or 3.5 hours to come to a meeting, to be in the room, even for a day retreat, right? Like, we're having a day planning. I think about, our delegation meetings where people are coming from Longview or whatever else. Like, I wouldn't do that.
I'm even thinking about some of the meetings we've had here where, if you think about the work-life balance, right, where you may be able to save at least an hour in the car not coming to a church meeting if you could have it on Zoom and if it's about information, right? So some of the meetings, like the regathering meetings we've done, those have been amazing online. And I don't think there's been diminished at all because we haven't been able to meet. And so it's kind of finding those kinds of meetings out where you could say, oh, we could be much more attending to people's lives, in this format in some ways.
Selfishly, I have a standing meeting with a guy, and if I had to drive to meet him, it would take me anywhere from 20 to 30 minutes one way, just in traffic. And if there's traffic jam, it could take more than that.
Yeah.
So that's an hour plus of time in my car, back and forth.
Oh, yeah.
Whereas now in Zoom, it's like 30 seconds. I don't even have to brush my teeth. Oh, yeah. I mean, they don't have to wear pants. And I have like shorts on, but what I'm saying?
Right,
I don't have to brush my teeth.
Yeah. Business in the top, party in the bottom.
I don't have to be ready. I mean, and if if I get up in the morning and we decide we want to do it at, early, I just put my hat on.
I had a face-to-face meeting yesterday that I thought was Zoom, and I ended up having to cancel like 2 other meetings around it because of drive time, and then just realizing some of the discussion that happens after the meeting continues on.
Oh, yeah.
And then, it's the meeting after the meeting.
Actually, that's a really good way. So I had a meeting this week in the evening, and it was with another congregation, some conversations that we've been having. And so you have the people on the Zoom starts, and you can tell the pastor that's kind of moderating this thing. It's like, we're kind of getting up to time, and a few other things. And it's like, okay, well, this is way longer than we want to go. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Boom, boom. I get up, I walk in the kitchen, fix myself a drink. It's over. If I had been there literally, because I've been to these meetings, and you're in there and you have the meeting,
John.
It's the same amount of time. It'd be an hour and a half, but then there would be 30 or 40 minutes of conversation in the parking lot after from some of the people that had been in the meeting. And I would have gotten home then another 30 minutes to drive. I would have gotten home like in the AM or something.
No, absolutely. I was out of practice. I realized when I left this meeting yesterday, it was the first face-to-face meeting I've had in a long, in this kind of meeting. And I was like, oh, I'm out of practice. I'm used to it being, you can hit end meeting for everyone. And it's just, like you said, you're in your kitchen. or you're on to the next Zoom, or so you can keep it. It's very efficient.
Yeah, you don't get, hey, do you have a minute?
Hey,
As you're on your way, do you
John,
have some time? Well, I think one of the things as I was just kind of looking over all this research is that, things have really changed, but faith, spirituality, religion, some component of that connection at your spiritual core is beneficial in your life.
Yeah.
We've always known that. I don't know that everyone knows that, but I think as people are listening and they share with family members, it's like, man, there's hard data in the
Absolutely.
pandemic that shows there's value to having some grounded spirituality. And then the other thing I think in this is when we talk about what does church look like on the other side? Well, it's going to need to look different, but it's going to have a lot of technology still wired into it. That's not a bad thing.
No.
And so I think that we got to just figure out how to leverage that as we go forward. But man, I'm thinking about some of the new stuff we're doing, and I'm thinking about people who intersect at spirituality at different places and platforms and places that are not really traditional, like a Sunday morning church service.
Right.
And they're getting it. There's a hunger in the world for a spiritual connection because people do see and sense value in that.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, anything else for the good of the order? All right. Well, I'm John Stevens.
And I'm Matt Russell.
And this is Pod Have Mercy.